You're listening to Is That Jazz? Straight No Chaser, a podcast featuring veterans talking jazz and life.
All right, welcome back to Is That Jazz? Straight No Chaser. This is episode 2. All you people out there, thank you for the comments, and I'm hoping that we're gaining more and more listeners. But right now, as we said in the first episode, we're going to try to interview at least one artist, one musician, an episode. And this episode, we're going to be talking about our lives experience around the music and the life and livelihood of Gil Scott-Heron. And Mike will be the one that'll be presenting all the information on Gil Scott. So, Mike, with that, take it away. It's yours.
Hey, everybody. Hope everything's going well for everyone that's out there in our audience. Gil Scott-Heron. Man, he was a strong force in jazz, in hip-hop. He just brought all the genres together. First of all, let's talk about his birth dates from 1949, so you know what he went through, to 2011. Now that's saying a lot. Gil, you know what got me is I really wanted to know, did he have two last names or what? I know little things like that may not get some people, but I'm like, Gil Scott-Heron, why did you call him that? Come to find out that his dad had quite a few brothers, and so each of them had the same middle name. But Gil Scott's mom just said, "No, I don't want him to have that." So what she did was she ended up giving him her last name and his dad. So there you got that Scott-Heron, and guy born in Chicago, brought up between Chicago, New York, and Tennessee. So he had a mass. That's
a hell of an education.
Yeah, he got educated. You're talking, 2 big cities, and then you down home. Then you down home in Tennessee. So that's a rough way to go.
It's a rude awakening.
Yeah, but most of his time growing up was actually spent in Jackson, Tennessee. So because his parents eventually got divorced, so he grew up basically with his grandmother. He's he attended a lot of his school in the Bronx. So New York was a big part of his life. So Gil Scott did a lot. He also said a lot, but he was one of the people politically that stayed with the times as well. He went through you can guess 1949, and and in the 50s, growing up, he went through a lot of prejudice. He went through a lot of hate, and I think a lot of that reflected in his music. A lot of his music portrayed the hate that he went through. And he was basically bringing it out, at least from my thought. He was bringing it out so more people can know that hate is there.
Yeah.
I
was definitely putting a message out there.
Yeah, he was putting a message out. He finally went to where did he go to school? I remember they said that he went to school at Lincoln University, and that's in Pennsylvania. So that's his college days. He was with I don't know if you guys, and this is probably what most people remember, is him and Brian Jackson. You know, they were always together. So they remember Brian Jackson as well. You know, and this Lincoln University, I think this is what may have gotten him into that poetry type of thing, because that was where Langston Hughes went. You know,
yeah, I think Langston Hughes was his like idol.
Yeah,
right?
that was one of his idols. I will say that. You know, I'll tell you, I did some looking up on some of his idols, and you know, he acknowledged a few people that he really paid attention to, you know, when he was doing his music and that type of thing. And his influences were like Richie Havens, like John Coltrane, Otis Redding, Jose Feliciano. I mean, listen to some of these names. Could you put all of that together? And for him to have that, you know, Billie Holiday, you know, of course, Langston Hughes, you know, Malcolm X, Huey Newton. You could hear some of that. You could hear him preaching that in his music. You know, Malcolm and Huey, they had a sincere push on him, you know, to let him put that. He also mentioned Nina Simone. And like I said, he's always collaborated with Brian Jackson. You know, so they've been together forever. You know, they ended up from school on. So you know, Gil was a real heavy mental guy, you know.
He was really smart too.
Oh, he was ultra smart, you know. Yeah. And he knew, he really knew, you know, what people were saying to him. He really dissected people's words and thoughts, and especially when he was in a conversation with them. They said that mentally he would just listen and just, you know, so he could respond. You know, that was one thing he would do. You know, I mean, what instruments did he play? Because we're talking about jazz. He played piano, you know, and every now and again, you know, he would get the guitar out and play that. You know, so he was multi-talented. You know, this guy, you know, from a thought tank type of person, you know, to be able to just pick up a guitar and play it and then bounce off of that and get on a piano, man, you know, he even wrote novels, you know. One of his most read novels was a novel called The Vulture, and many people have read that. It's been around a while, you know, and it's right. and he was a big poetry guy, so a lot of his books mainly focused on poetry as well.
He also taught literature and creative writing for several years at the University of the District of Columbia. This guy was into everything.
Oh, he just spread out, you know. He spread out and he wanted to, at least from my standpoint, I think that what he wanted to do is he wanted to make all people aware of what's going on in America. You know, he wanted to let them know this is what's happening in America. You know, we need to come together and get this thing right. You know, because it's not right, at least on some platforms. You know.
Yeah,
so
he was like the Martin Luther King and
without a doubt,
all rolled into one for music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He tried to. He tried to do things that would, you know, bring peace. You know, he was all about, you know, peace. But if peace has to come through, you know, you got to have a revolution to have peace. then so be it. You know?
Yeah.
That's the thing. You know, that's the thing, you know. And you know, some of his thoughts, you know, if you gotta have revolution to have peace, you know, bring on the revolution, you know.
Yeah.
As I said, let me back up a little bit so that our audience can see that. The revolution will not be televised.
Like I said, all you need now is some red, black, and green paint, and you'd be good to go.
Yeah, but that was one of his greatest, is the revolution will not be televised. And that showed his poet side, and you know, he just, man, some of his big things, you know, good one, Small Talk at 125th and Lenox. That was one of his pieces. That piece, if you ever get a chance, just check it out. It's something to listen to.
Actually, that was his first album.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
You know, I mean, that was in 1970. So that, you know, it's been a while. You know, I mean, he was credited with things like helping to start hip hop. You know.
Yeah.
You know, because if you think about spoken word, it's addressing certain things, and yeah, there's things in hip hop also that address certain things depending upon you know, who the artists are and that type of thing. But some hip hop artists actually do address the scene in America today. You know, because there's a lot going on, and there's a lot to be said. But I think Gil Scott was he was before his time. You know,
He was a revolutionary.
yeah,
You know.
he was
Yeah.
before his time. You know, and I mean, you know, you listen to people like Public Enemy, you know, and the way they hit things and talk about certain things. You know, I'm sure, you know, a lot of that was from
Gil Scott.
Yeah, from Gil Scott, and not just Gil Scott, but others that, you know, I mean, you got Huey Newton, you got the people that he actually thought were revolutionaries and trying to do better for us.
A lot of the things he sang about in his songs is during the 70s is what I actually grew up with. You know, angel dust, drugs, starvation.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
and it's also something that he grew up with.
Yeah, he grew up with.
He had a problem. He had a problem for a while.
Yeah, he did.
He fought his way out of it.
But,
you know, but it's rough, man. At that time in the streets, you got to think about it. You know, there was nothing for people, definitely people of color. But you know, you had people who, the downtrodden, the people that didn't have money to go to college and money to buy a nice home, or, you know, they had to work the jobs that a lot of people didn't want to work.
you know?
Yeah. And that's the platform he decided to talk about and say, you know, we need to get this together. Let me tell you some of the hip hop people that I looked up that he had influenced. Tribe Called Quest, Common, Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar. Man, he made a lot of things go well. He fought the establishment to make things better for people. And yeah, that's why, you know, you wonder, can music, and specifically here, can jazz have something to help? You know, can we put out something that'll help? And I think that's the possibility, and I think that's that's the message. That's a message that was going out. And that's what Gil Scott was about, was that message that was going out. You know?
I don't know. I think we kind of missed that mark with a lot of the music today. You know, back in the day, most of the music, there was a message in the music.
Right,
It spoke about how you grew up, where you came from, and where you want to go, and where you need to go. You know,
Right.
So there's always like inspiration in the music. You know, now it's all. You know, I'm not gonna just. You know, I'm not gonna stereotype the whole music industry. Of course not. But
No.
there's a lot of music out there that's on the negative side. You know, it's like it just encourages people to do, you know, the wrong things. You know.
Right.
So yeah, just doing a research on Gil Scott, I learned a lot about him I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, like most of the stuff you just talked about. You know, he's a deep brother, really deep.
Oh, he was.
Absolutely.
Hey, he had some things going. You know, I mean, look at his albums. Pieces of a Man.
Mhm.
Look at the names of them. You know, the next one was Free Will. You know, Winter in America. Man, it's just Winter in America was one of the biggest. You know, just
Mhm.
saying, you know, America it's cold. It's cold.
It's cold, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cold.
Not where you are, but we know.
Yeah. But,
And he even sang about Johannesburg and apartheid.
oh yeah,
South
man.
Africa.
Oh, he was
Yeah.
all big. Where he could help, he would help. Where
He
he
would
saw,
help, yeah.
where he saw hurt happening, he would help.
Yeah.
You know, wherever he could, if he can, you know, if he had the chance to put words out that would help the situation, that's what he would do. You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was, and you're right. You know, that was his album from South Africa to South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
You know, think about it. You know, from South Africa to South Carolina. Yeah. Him and Brian Jackson, they really put out some things. You know, and I don't want to, you know, short Brian Jackson either, because he was really a poet of the times as well, and you know, they worked together. They did things together. I had the chance to see Gil Scott when I was living out in California. It's the
Mhm.
only time I saw him. He was out in California. Who was that? Redondo Beach. Out on Redondo Beach, they had a little place called Concerts by the Sea. I don't know if any of our audience has ever been there or remembers that, because it's gone now. It was so close to the sea, it got washed away.
Wow.
Yeah, it was on the pier in Redondo Beach, but
Now
yeah,
it's
it ended
hidden
up
sea.
getting washed away. You know, so that's not great.
Well, that's proof that California is eroding, huh?
Out of sea in the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it went, but that was back in the 80s. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was back in the 80s, man. Yeah, but what I really like about Gil is I liked a lot of, you know, I liked his music. Don't get me wrong, I loved his music, but I liked the way that he put it in a poetry form.
Right.
That's you know, so that it made you think. You know, it does. It makes you think. You know, and I wish I would have had a chance to talk with him. You know, because I want to see if what we were thinking is what he was trying to get us to think.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
To see if is this what you meant by that? You know, it would be nice to be able to just have a conversation with him and just find out where he was going with everything. You know, because he went through some hard times. I mean, like I said, he grew up, I mean, in Chicago, New York, Tennessee. You know, everybody's aware of his struggles with drugs and you know, alcohol and that kind of thing. But you know what? Back then, there was nobody to help. You know?
Yeah. True that.
Yeah, there was nobody to help.
There were a lot of musicians that were addicted to something.
Yeah,
Addicted to something. So
it happened, and it's it's just something that had to be faced, and sometimes that's the way that they dealt with what they were doing. Sometimes that's the way they dealt with how many shows they had. Just hey, I gotta stay up. I gotta I got a show in California this night. Then I gotta be all the way back over in Kansas City, and then from there I gotta go up to Chicago. Then I gotta go back down to Tennessee. I mean, that just beats up your body.
Sometimes it made them creative.
Yeah, you have
but
to.
It was hard work, and it wore you down too.
You gotta. Sometimes it takes some things to help you. Believe me, I'm not saying that it's great. And even he said it wasn't great. So, he had a little war against drugs of his own, in some of his music. So it's just something that I thought. I just think he was a great poet and a great, that's the biggest thing I think I think he was a great poet. And I think his music was long.
When he made the cut Angel Dust, do you think he was addicted at that time? Or maybe he got over his addiction? That's a deep cut.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I think with Angel Dust, and this is just my thoughts, I think with Angel Dust, he had been on it. Of course, obviously. But I think he was trying to bring out that at that time in history, Dust was all of a sudden, it just came out, all of a sudden Dust was everywhere, especially in larger cities, you go to the ghettos of larger cities, well, everybody here knows, Chicago, Jerome, Kevin, Brooklyn,
back in the 70s, it was heroin.
Back in the 70s, it was heroin, and Dust was there. I came from Jersey, Central Jersey, so it was something that was just there. It was something that he, I think, tried to, since he had been through a lot of it, I think it was something that he also tried to warn people about.
About it, yeah.
Yeah, because if you listen to the lyrics, you'll know what he's saying.
He did his through music. Richard Pryor is through comedy.
Exactly, and yeah. I'm telling you, man. And that's where that's where that Winter in America, and you gotta think about what they were thinking, and that's why I say, I wish that I would have been able to be in touch with him just to see what he thought of everything, and why he was making these spoken word and the songs that he was making that went to certain people who understood. And I just wanted to make sure I'm like, am I understanding?
Right.
Am I getting it? Is this something that he wanted everyone to get? And I'm sure it is. It's definitely something, because that's the message. That's why the music. That's why the poetry. Because always sending a message. Somebody's writing that for that reason.
Some of these young brothers and sisters out there today, y'all need to check out Gil Scott. There's a message in his music. There's a lot that you can learn from him. And he could, whatever questions you might have, he probably got the answer for it. So it's like his music is timeless,
Yep, that's a fact. And that's one of the reasons why we actually chose the title of his song, Is That Jazz, for the title of our podcast.
Right.
Exactly.
For the same things that he gave, we want to,
Yeah.
we want to reflect on the same things that he was talking about also.
Without a doubt.
And I got turned on to him looking back in I went in the military in 1977. And I had mentors.
Strong then.
Yes, he was. I had mentors there when I got there, that most of them were in the Vietnam War. They came back from Vietnam. So here I am, fresh off the street. I escaped Vietnam. It ended a month before I graduated from high school, thank goodness.
Oh, hey, same here, man.
You too. And, so when they came back, there was a lot of racial tension in America, in the military, that people that weren't in the military probably didn't know about. But there was a group of people that hung out, in Vietnam. Just like I hung with Kevin and Mike. I know they got my back. So there was people in Vietnam that hung together the same way. But they weren't just black people hanging together or white people hanging together. It was, black and white or whatever. You hung with whoever got your back. And so when they came to the States and they met up with us young guys coming in, they showed us that they had their back. And one of the things that they was playing all the time was Gil Scott-Heron. That's how I got exposed to him. Actually, while I came in the military. And the stuff that he was talking was very relevant to the military racial tensions that were going on in 1970.
At that time. Yeah.
And he was saying things that we wanted to say, but in the military, you can't really say it because of the structure of it. But you can be in your dorm and you can turn up his music and play it loud, and people passing can hear what's on your mind because even, we go outside and barbecue outside the barracks. Somebody throws some big speakers out and they're playing Gil Scott-Heron or whatever. And you can see, they caught a flavor of what we were feeling. And some people would even talk to us about it, and that's some of the things that, I remember from his music. And when we was choosing the title for this podcast, everybody threw down some names and we said, okay, it's three of us, majority wins. And when I saw Mike's title, Is That Jazz? Because I didn't even think about putting it on there. I was like, that's my vote right there. Then Kevin voted on it. And of course, Mike voted on it because he wrote it.
That's all we was all for it. It sounded good.
Yeah.
It sounded good,
Here we are. So,
like Jerome was saying, it's back in the 70s, Gil Scott's music really hit home because a lot of people don't realize it or probably don't think about it, but even in the military, we were confronted with a lot of racism in the military. When it came down to making rank, when it came down to task assignments, it's like, it's we always get the, excuse my language, shittiest assignments, and rank, when we made rank, I don't know about the Army or in the Air Force, you had to test for your rank. And if you made rank, I know with me, I've been through this many times, I'd make rank especially when I first made staff sergeant. That's the first time I had to test for my strike. And I passed the test and I made staff sergeant. So I'm standing at the command ceremony, and the commander's handing out stripes. So he shakes, I don't mean to sound racist, but this is exactly what happened. He shakes the white boy's hand and he goes, good. He goes, congratulations. I knew you'd make it. You smart like that, And then when he gets to me, he shakes my hand. He said, you lucky. Well, I gotta be lucky and they'd be smart, So, I mean, that's how subtle the racism was. That's how subtle it was. And then, it happened to you once and you'd be like, okay, the commander don't like me. I don't give a shit. But then when it happens to you again, when you make rank, and then again when you make rank, why is it that we got to be lucky? So we had a lot of racism we had to confront in the military back in the 70s. A lot.
And hence, those are some of the things that were in the military exactly. And they were definitely happening. That was definitely happening at a large scale outside the military. Throughout cities and throughout states. I mean, America had to grow. It had to grow and realize, and then same with the military, had to grow and realize that everybody's got a brain. It just depends upon how they use it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I mean, growing up in the military. Well, not growing up in the military, but during my military career, you meet people. Your camaraderie. You really have a bond
without a doubt.
People. Different colors, different backgrounds, different cultures, and that's because you're all interested in getting to know one another. And there's people like that in the military, and that's what makes the military great. but you still got people in the military that's like some of these people out here.
Well,
You know?
the military is because the military is a melting pot of America.
Exactly.
It draws from the population, and so you're going to get good people. You're going to get not so
Bad
good people. You know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's
So,
just
so you know, so that's there, and but like I said, with his music, just listening to it opened up my eyes to, you know, he said what I wanted to say, and I didn't, because I was lower rank at the time, so I didn't. You keep your mouth shut, and you just go do it. But that helped me with becoming the person that I became, and the jobs that I got after that, because I worked at a B-52 alert facility, got 4 B-52s outside with nuclear weapons on top of it. So at 20 years old, I number one had to grow up real fast, because that was for real. Everybody talk about, you know, being deployed to the desert and this and that. How many people have said at ground zero, knowing if the Russians shoot a missile, it's coming to where you work at? How many people? How many people can actually say that? I went to work with that. I went to work with that every day. So I grew up real quick. I had leadership that noticed it. Like I had a commander of the facility was Colonel Maxwell. He looked at it. He saw me doing exercises and stuff. He said, "Man, everybody else doing exercise, running around like chickens with their heads cut off." He said, "You just, don't faze you." I said, "Hey, I grew up on the west side and south side of Chicago.
Yeah,
I'm going, living in ganglands.
You can't stop what's gonna happen."
Right. I said, "This is real world, so I can't take this lightly." So I don't, I said, I just do what we're supposed to do by the book every day. So when the exercise happens, or if the real world happens, I do it every day, so it ain't no big deal. And he said, I wish everybody took that philosophy. And then when he wrote my APR, when we had APRs before they went to EPRs, he had the commander of the 8th Air Force endorse it.
What was that? Airman Performance Report.
Airman Performance Report.
Airman Performance Report, yeah. And they put on there, hey, Airman Wilson needs to be at headquarters level throughout his career. And he put that in my APR. And after that happened, next thing I know, I was leaving the alert facility. I went to the 912th Air Refueling Squadron for a couple of months. Ended up working for the wing commander for the 19th Bomb Wing. And then from there I went to when I did swap assignments to go to Korea, they saw that and they put me at working for the wing commander of the 8th Tactical Fighter Wing.
Oh.
So, but I took, all that negativity and stuff and just listening to Gil Scott-Heron saying that I'm going to improve myself because I'm not going to fall into that little category where somebody going to hold me back because of my color. I let my performance speak for itself. And that's what I did. And it worked out. And it worked out.
Somebody will see it. Somebody will see it.
It worked out very well.
Yeah. I mean, it Gil Scott records, records like Gil Scott and just jazz in general. It just took away the stress. It took away the stress. I remember I met Mike in Japan, but you came after a couple of months after I was there. I remember my first day at work. Okay, and my supervisor, Tech Sergeant Degner, never forget his name. And so I'm young airman. Well, I don't even think I had a stripe at that time. If I did, I only had one. But I was working. Let me see. I was working at a dental clinic. So I just I'm a tech school for dental clinic, 6 weeks long. I was a dental technician, doctor's assistant. So when I got to that first day, I'm ready to go work with the doc. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get signed to work the doc and work with patients. And so Sergeant Degner, called me in his office, sat me down, and he said, this is a white dude too. And he says, there's 2 things shouldn't be in the military. He said, blacks and females. That's what he told me. And then he gave me this long stick with a suction cup on the top. And he says, I want you to go around and change out all the light bulbs in the clinic. And I'm like, the ones that are blown, right? He goes, no, all the light bulbs in the clinic. I said, what the hell? If the light bulb is working, what the hell I need to change it out? Then he pulls out a copy of my contract that I signed. Oh man, this thing zoomed in again. He pulls out a copy of my contract that I signed to join the Air Force, and he had it in yellow, highlight. part of the contract that said, any and all duties as deemed by your commander or whatever. So he's like, you're going to do that because you have to do that because it's in your contract. So for the first week I was in the dental clinic, I was a janitor. I was a janitor for the first week because he wouldn't let me work with a doc. Because like he said, he felt like blacks and women shouldn't be in the military and whatnot. And finally, I don't know how, I guess a new doc came in and they paired me with the doc. I never get his name, Dr. Chidley. But I did that for 3 years. And I wind up cross-training into cryptographic maintenance tech. And that's where I met Jerome down at tech school in Lackland Air Force Base, Texas.
What's the correct duty title for that? I want to hear. You better not mess up.
Oh, you're talking about the AFSC?
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't remember that. 30270.
No, man.
What's
What's the words that go with it? Come on, Kevin.
Cryptographic maintenance technician.
Electronic communications.
Electronic
cryptographic equipment.
Oh, come on, man.
Systems repairman. Say it right now. Come on.
Too much, man. I cut that shit down.
Let the people know. Let the people know what we are.
you know what cryptographic? I mean, you don't know what cryptographic means? Look it up. Shoot.
Hey, you'd be surprised at people that don't know what
basically
cryptographic
what we did is that we worked on the communication equipment that encrypted and decrypted the top secret messages and voice.
Also, the bottom secret. No.
The analog, digital, any type of analog digital traffic that was encrypted or decrypted. We repaired that equipment. We installed that equipment. We modified it, and then sometimes we operated it too as well.
And that was before Signal.
Yeah. That was
before what?
That was before the Signal app.
Oh,
the Signal app.
I'm gonna say. That's what you use instead of the Signal app, folks.
Yeah. What we use before I retired, we used the Motorola Stu 3, Motorola Stu 3 handheld cell phone, encrypted cell phone. But so now they use.
but it was encrypted, yeah.
It was encrypted, yeah. So, man. So anyway, like I said, during that 20 years of service, we ran into. Just making rank wasn't easy. And I know for Mike, it wasn't easy even working in the hospital.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. But, you learn to just, fight off, what's that saying? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Makes you stronger, yeah.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Yep. And so that's how you got to look at things sometimes.
Yeah.
But... and I gotta agree, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But then you got people like Gil Scott, who's putting it out there that's saying, hey, this is what's happening in America. So get ready, be strong with it, and make sure, you're ready for what's coming, and you're ready for what's here. He's telling you what's here as well, and which is a good thing, because when you see what's happening, not just in your area, but in different areas, the whole drug situation that went on, it didn't just go on in Chicago and New York and New Jersey. It went on in every state in the United States.
Yeah.
And to be honest with y'all, it went on in the military too.
Oh yeah. It was, it's
in most cases it didn't get to the States unless it came through the military.
Through the military.
That's a long story I'm not about to get into.
Yeah, let's not get into that right now. But yeah, it did hit all branches of the military,
it was part of America,
and
man.
That's something that like I said, Gil Scott put everybody on notice that it, especially like you were talking about dust and stuff, especially when that kind of stuff started coming up, he was like, you might as well get ready for it because it's coming.
Let me see if I remember. So Angel does the same thing as what we used to call PCP, right?
Yeah. Right.
And what basically was like we would have
Well, it's the early form. Yeah.
early form, like we would have back in the 70s. They had PCP lace joints, where all PCP was embalming fluid.
That's
and
it.
they would soak the weed in the embalming fluid, and and sell it. It used to sell joints back in the day. You could buy a nickel bag, dime bag, or you could buy one joint for $1. And you get a PCP joint, you smoking embalming fluid, and that's a trip you don't
Tear
want.
your brain up.
That's a trip you don't want.
What's a joint? What's a joint?
What's
Think about you. What I find is really something to see now is that marijuana. People were locked up for years for having marijuana.
No
and
joke.
now look at the travel. Look at how it's traveled now.
Yeah.
Now it's legal. Well, I'm here in Vegas, and it's legal here in Vegas. I don't know about everybody else, but it's legal here in Vegas.
It's medical marijuana,
but-
even though
yeah.
we voted on recreational marijuana, but our governor decided otherwise. But
And I live in a
only
gun
a certain
state, so
Only a certain amount is legal. Let me put it that way too. You can't just have a whole room full of marijuana.
can't go out the whole floor out.
yeah,
so
crazy.
so it's funny that it's now legal. Just just the journey that it's taken, and I think bringing that back to Gil Scott is the journey. All of his albums at that time. I know everybody now is streaming and all that other stuff, but all of his albums led a journey, for each time in history. It's really something,
It was like a story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's just something to see. Real interesting guy. If any of our people who are watching this, please do some research on Gil Scott. Read some of his poems. Read the lyrics of some of his songs.
right.
And think about that. Think about the things that he's putting out there, and he wants you to mentally see.
Yeah,
Stream some of his songs and
yeah.
Stream
And
some of
I
the
know
songs.
if you stream
listen
from
to the words.
Spotify, you can click on a link.
Finally,
You can see the lyrics.
Spotify, YouTube is a good, good
Yeah.
place to look at.
He's a very mentally aware. He was a very mentally aware person of what was happening in his world and in this world.
Yep.
And while you at it, if you're going to stream for Gil Scott or any other artists that we talk about here on the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and I think on Spotify is the follow button. And so we want to build an audience that we can interact with, and eventually we'll be able to have a chat up and running, and hopefully even voice. But right now, to get to know you, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, and if you got any questions or comments right now on our website, isthatjazz.com, on the email form, you can put your comment in on the email form and send it directly to us. And that'll go to info@isthatjazz.com. And we'll do our best to get back with you as soon as possible.
What you doing, Mike?
Yeah. Mike is like, that's right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, we can go on. Time's getting short. We pass out 30-minute mark, but hey, that's no big deal. I got a lot to talk about. Especially, I got a lot to talk about. How music affected me, how jazz affected me, how to help me get through all of the racist incidents that I ran into. I mean, when I went permanent party, my first 2 weeks in the Air Force was, man, it's like I went through more in the Air Force in my first 2 weeks than I did the whole time growing up in New York.
and that's because you're coming in contact with people.
Yeah. I'm talking about when I got to my permanent party station.
Yeah. And you know, still coming in contact with people from different places, and they bringing it with them. You know, that's all it was. You know, me being from Chicago, man. That's the people in the South take this to heart. Chicago, Illinois is the racist place I've ever been in my life. It's the most segregated place I've ever been. It's the most racist place.
It sounds like New York.
And people don't realize that. We give the South a bad rap, you know, and I'm going to be honest with you. It's up north.
I used to say all the time, people ask me about New York, and I would tell them, I said, it's the most integrated, segregated place I ever grew up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can find just about any nationality of people in New York, but they all live in their own neighborhood.
They all live in their own neighborhood.
That's the thing. They have their own little pod.
Right. And then you get sections of like in Chicago, it's just like that. You know, you go different neighborhoods. Then as you move away from those, going out more towards, say, more north, maybe very south, then you start getting
integrated when you start moving out to suburbs.
You start getting the mixtures. But for the most part, you still got your solid neighborhoods where, you know, they don't go outside their neighborhood. Nobody does.
Yep.
And I was all over the city, man. You know.
Now that we're on the subject, I just want to say this before we sign off. We're not going anywhere right now, but I just want to say this. That I'll just explain to if anybody out there thinking about joining the military, especially joining the Air Force, one thing you need to realize, I don't know if they still say this or not, but every Air Force base we call the yard. And why we call it the yard? Because every Air Force base has a fence around it.
That's right.
So I just need you people to realize this, okay? When you join the military, you think you're joining something different. You are really joining something different, but you need to realize this, okay? The same people on the outside of that yard are on the inside of that yard.
That's right.
Okay. So some of us change, but a lot of us don't. So to be honest with you, when you first get in, you're going to get hit with that camaraderie, that esprit de corps, and everybody is your team member, your teammate, your buddy. It ain't like that. You just got to be able to watch out, be able to tell people and read people, and watch out for number one, which is yourself. But just remember what I said. Everything on the outside of that yard is on the inside of that yard. So just keep that in mind.
Without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt, I agree fully on that. You know, you just gotta keep your eyes open and your ears open.
And your mouth shut.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And find some music to say what you want to say. That's all.
Yeah.
And
Music is your scapegoat. You know, when I get off of work, you know, what we used to get off of work, go to chow hall, you know, eat your dinner, go back to your room, you know, put on, you know, chill out, take off your uniform, put on your civvies, and then turn on the stereo, put some music on, just chill out. That's it. That was my escape. That take me away, you know, especially when you're overseas. And first time overseas, I don't care what anybody say, you're going to get homesick. You're going to get homesick. It's going to happen. So play that music, okay? Chill out. Turn off the lights in the room. Relax. You know, work day is hectic.
Yeah, that being said, boom.
Oh, there it goes. There it goes.
Looks like a reflection.
Gil Scott.
That's him.
Pull it back a little bit. That's called an album, y'all.
Yeah, move it back. Yeah,
well, now, like my daughter called it, it's a vinyl to her, you know, but it's an album to me.
Yeah, that's these are the things we used to calm down with in the dorm.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yep.
Check it out. Man. We used to buy albums. Well, how much they used to cost? $5-7 an album?
Yeah.
Around $7, $5 to $7.
Yep.
Depending on where you bought it.
You won't get albums for $5 or $7 anymore.
They're like $30+, you know. They cost, man. They cost.
In this lifetime. Yeah, they $30-something, man.
Yeah.
Then you got to have a turntable to play them on.
Blame
No
on,
doubt.
yeah.
No
You
doubt.
know, that's the thing. You know, and that ain't cheap nowadays.
So now you got a room full of stereo system in the size of your cell phone.
Yeah.
For real.
And that's the truth.
I'm serious. Yeah. So you know, it's like we've been around long enough to witness that change. You know,
Exactly.
I remember when the first Walkman came out. That was like magic. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, and it was thick and big and bulky too, man, and whatnot.
But the Walkman,
Back in the day,
Yeah.
before Walkmans, man, people was walking around with boom
big old-
boxes
them
and
big boom boxes.
tape players. You know,
Yeah.
most people don't even know what
hey
an
man,
8 is.
8-track
Oh,
was
a lot of people now.
8-track
do.
was 8-track was a joint, man. You had a suitcase full of 8-tracks.
Yeah. And your 8-track player.
Yeah.
8-track was about that big.
That's
Tape was
times, right?
Right too.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
about
just
that
have a
big.
suitcase. To have a suitcase to carry him in, boy.
Yeah, people thought you was running away from home and shit.
I know. And the good thing about it is you couldn't really skip the song, so you had to play it through.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And if you wanted to get back to the song you just played, you had to go through the whole tape.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if they had fast. They didn't have fast forward, I don't think.
They have fast
They
forward.
eventually had it. Yeah, eventually it
'cause
came about.
I know you
But
could
initially,
skip to
no.
You
Yeah.
could skip to the next song. I remember you could do that, but
Yeah.
wasn't no fast
Yeah,
forward.
man.
Fast forward. That's right. You tear that tape.
And then if you was desperate, if you had an 8-track and you didn't have a cassette player, they had the little adapters where you could put a cassette into the 8-track and then
8-track.
put it into
Yeah.
the machine.
Man, things have come so far.
That was top of the line too back then, man.
Yeah, you better believe it.
Top of the line. Yep.
And
Better
we
believe it.
see all this stuff come to light, man. Can you imagine going to work and there's no computers on your desk? You got this thing called a typewriter.
Typewriter.
Not that.
And it ain't electric, it's mechanical.
It was
Yeah.
hey, I was a 702. I know what they was like, an Underwood.
Like,
One
yeah.
of
It was 60 words per minute.
Yep.
Now think about that, man.
Then you pull out, make a mistake. Then you pull out the
white out.
What they call it? The white out. Yep.
Out the white out.
Then
You know what I use the white?
Then
You
you
know
gotta
what I
line it back
use
up.
for? You know what I use the white out for?
What's that?
For my gun sights. Just a little drop of white out, you know, that white dot fading or that white dot disappearing. Put a little drop of white out on it, man. I'm telling you.
That's right.
Serious.
Put it right
That's
back
crazy.
in.
Yeah.
Shoot,
That's it.
man. That's without a doubt, bro.
Man, I'm telling you. We done seen some changes, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
We've
This
changed.
world has changed.
Y'all don't know how easy y'all got it. If anybody under the age of 25 listening, y'all don't know how easy y'all got it. Under the age of 30, put it that way.
But in their lifetime, it's their struggle, man. You know.
Yeah, it's their struggle. Yeah.
We ain't gonna take the struggle from them.
No, they got new struggles. Yeah.
Every
They got-
generation goes through something.
Something.
Yeah.
It's just an easy or something.
It's like
Yeah.
a vicious circle, man. What goes
Yeah.
around comes around.
It
You know,
is.
everything we're going through now politically, we done already been through.
Without a doubt.
Since the beginning of the country. Since 1770, way before 1776. You know, it's
Yeah,
like a
man.
vicious circle. It just keeps going
It
around
really
and around.
is.
And this when everything seems like it's going to get better, it gets worse again. You know? So hopefully you young
Just-
people out there can stop that chain. Break that circle. Hopefully. Hopefully. Because it saddens me. I spent 20 years of my life to make a better life for my family, for my friends, for the country. And just to see the country where it's at today, it brings tears to my eyes, you know? It makes me feel like, sometimes it makes me feel like, you know, I did 20 years for nothing, you know?
No, we didn't do it for
But
nothing.
I can't think that way. I can't think like
We didn't
that.
do
No,
it for
you
nothing.
can't think that way.
Like that, yeah.
You know, we went ahead. You know,
Because the
That's
first
the
of every
thing.
month, I feel real good after that.
That's a retired military
hey,
person talking
hey.
there.
Hey, it gets all better.
Yeah,
That color, you know?
yeah.
Keep that pay. And,
Yeah.
just don't mess with that pay. Mess with that pay. I'm telling you.
It's an issue.
World of hurt.
It's an issue. I'm telling you.
World of hurt. But pay attention to the lyrics.
Yeah, that's what we need to emphasize is please pay attention to the lyrics, especially of Gil Scott, and Brian Jackson, because they really put something on your mind. They make you think, and they make you think. I know we're in 2025 right now, but they make you think back on the days, and if you're too young to know, think back on the days that your older brother, your mom, your dad were going through some things, and listen to what Gil Scott's saying, because what he's doing is he's telling you what they were going through. He's telling you what they were going through and hoping that you're getting something from this and you won't have to go through it. So listen to them. Listen to those words.
Yep. Well, hey, fellas, we're pushing an hour now.
Oh.
I think it's about that time.
That it is.
Adios to the audience, but I'll let you guys. Let you guys say what it is. Say your last words, and with that, we'll go ahead and sign off and see you in another 2 weeks with a new episode. But anything you need to say, Mike?
No, I pretty much said it as far as Gil Scott goes, and actually, as far as any music goes, I know it's kind of hard nowadays. It's a different genre. But there are groups and people that make music for this day and time, and I think you should always listen to your music. Have fun with it, but don't just blow it off. Listen to it. Listen to jazz. That's the one thing, because the other thing that we need to ask about that is, with Gil Scott, is that jazz? Is it? Get your formation of it. What do you call it?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's right. It may not be jazz to everybody, but it's jazz to me, and it's straight and no chaser.
I heard that. Jerome, you got anything you need to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody listening in, and hope you got some value out of what was said this afternoon. And like Mike said, hey, listen to some music. Don't just hear it. Listen to it and see where it takes you sometimes. And even though you might listen to hip hop or some other, R&B or any popular music or whatever, every now and again, just throw a little mixture in there. Everybody should listen to different types of music, not just one type of music. Because if you're just limiting yourself if you listen to one. I listen to a lot of jazz, but that's not all I listen to.
All right.
I can listen to some classical in a heartbeat. Seriously,
yeah.
It's just gonna be me alone. I ain't gonna just play it for nobody else, but it might be what I want to hear. And,
right.
At that moment,
I might want to hear some country western. I might listen to some of that. I might pick up my guitar when I hear it to see if I can play it. I don't know, but it's just at the moment. It's just something you just want to hear something different. Don't listen to the same thing every time, but because music is universal. Music is a language that just relaxes everybody. And if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling you want to get motivated, listen to some music. I can listen to some Eminem in a heartbeat. The soundtrack from 8 Mile, that's really motivated me when I started listening to the words. I heard it, I heard it, but I never listened to it, And that's great, man. So that's all I got for today, myself. And
okay,
all right.
Well, with that said, wait, don't go nowhere. Hold up. With that said, don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify. And glad you could stay and listen to our podcast. And hopefully we'll hear from you or see you, or you'll hear from us in 2 weeks' time. But with that, I like to say,
subscribe.
have a good one.
Subscribe.
Mike say subscribe.
We out of here. I'll have a good one.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
All right.
That concludes this episode. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. Is That Jazz? Straight No Chaser airs every other week at the same time and on the same day. YouTube viewers, please subscribe. We also encourage you to leave a comment and share your thoughts on our podcast. We'll be sure to reply to all comments. Goodbye for now and stay safe.